Welcome back from the break, everyone, to Pivotal Change, your show about learning how to make that leadership change in your life that's going to drive you towards success. Now, we are back from that original discussion that we just had with some really good information about leadership and making yourself those changes moving forward internally. And I'm now bringing you to our guest, a very, very dear guest of mine, one of the most dear guests I could possibly have on the show, my very own father, Robert Conn, who goes by Bob Conn. Now, his background is pretty interesting and is ultimately responsible for a lot of the leader who I am today. He's had an incredible career in General Motors over 30 years, and he ended his career as a pre-production and development operations manager in engineering. And what that required him to do is, as a leader, go all over the world, places like France and Germany, a little bit of time in Japan, South Korea, China, and Mexico, and work with other leaders, other teams, and help drive everyone towards their mission in maximizing production using people from all backgrounds. So, Dad, welcome to the show.
Welcome, son. I'm glad to be here.
Well, what I'm going to do is, we're a little bit crunched for time because we're boxed in by the hour. And I want to jump straight in with the questions so people can see a little bit about where I come from as a leader and your mindset and how you drove a lot of remarkable success. So I'm going to ask this question. You did spend a lot of time working for that one company, General Motors, at a high level, and you did leadership level type of maneuvers all over these different countries. You had one mission to get accomplished, and you had to get people from different cultures, different countries and backgrounds and faith groups and et cetera, all of that diversity to work together and strive towards that one mission. So tell me, what did you do to make all of that successful?
Wow, big question. The mission was to execute an experimental hardware program and take it from conception to manufacturing. Doing that in China, doing that in Korea, doing that in France and in Mexico. The task at hand is to make sure that we did it in a fast way so that we could, if we had needed to correct problems or errors, the cycle time was reduced. The problem is we were dealing with multiple cultures. Now, how did I do that? Well, we used tools, value stream mapping. We used things, lean engineering. We used a whole host of things that we actually gleaned a lot from the Toyota production system. But the biggest thing was how to develop a team of experts and have them focused and have trust, because if we don't have trust, it's very difficult to move forward. And so you spend a lot of time mentoring, a lot of time making sure that everybody understands what the task is set before us. And then breaking down cultural barriers, which we had to do because some people just don't think the way that or execute the way that we executed. But it was a great job, and it was wonderful, and it was highly motivational, and enjoyed it immensely.
I can imagine that that's pretty rewarding when you take, again, this diverse background of people that maybe have never been exposed to a system, a methodology, or different cultures of working together, and then you get the light switch to click and turn on, and the people are now moving towards that mission. So one of the things I want to draw out right here as we continue to discuss is you said establishing trust. And to me, knowing your background is how you raised me, trust is paramount. Can you dive in a little bit farther about what are some of the methodologies or conversations or people you would specifically target to help build trust along the way?
Okay, so when we develop a team, you have a program, you have a vision, you have something that you need to execute, but you got to find and develop a team to do that. You spend a lot of time listening to them, a lot of time mentoring them. You definitely have a lot of time understanding their skill set. One of the biggest issues was you don't put people in positions that they're going to fail unless that's part of the character growth. So as the leader, you've got to make sure that not only do you have the vision, you have the self-confidence, and there are times where you have to have the end say, it's this way and we're going to do it. And there's no time for dialogue. And so when the team works together and they begin to understand where the roles are and the responsibilities, which have to be well defined, people can work and function in an environment versus trying to figure out what do we do next. And then the other thing that was extremely important was in the engineering world, making a mistake wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Not making a decision was a horrible thing. So we had to make sure that what we were doing, that people were empowered. And that was a big key, was how to get them empowered. If I had to be a helicopter manager and had to make sure I had to go around and do everybody's job or to verify they were doing it, the team wasn't functioning. And so we had metrics to measure how well we were doing to get to that level.
So you gave us a whole lot to think about, and I'm going to continue to try to pull out little pieces right here. So I really want to focus on something that's near and dear to me. I have something that you've discussed with me in the past called fail forward, where it is okay to make mistakes. Again, doing malicious bad behavior is different, but making mistakes should be growth, it should be learning, and it should make you fail forward in the direction of your mission and your vision. And you had said just a moment ago that we don't want to put people in positions where they're going to fail unless it's a part of character development. Would that coincide with the idea of failing forward in your mindset?
Yes, you have to test your individuals to understand where they're at. And I'm not talking about grading them, but as you give them tasks, there may be some tasks by design that are going to be extremely difficult from them. And so you got to make sure that as they understand when you do the evaluation, that this task was to push them, to help them grow. It was not to make them feel defeated and to move them backwards. Once they understand that, then they begin to realize and they begin to achieve and they begin to be risk takers. And that is something that you also need to have in a team.
Gotcha. So the risk taker component is really important because we do, as leaders, owners, influencers of teams and other people, we want our people to take initiative and take appropriate risk. Now, I tell as a part of my principles of leadership that setting boundaries and expectations is important. Expectations is, I want you to go out there and conquer. And boundary is, but I want you to go this far and no farther to keep things inside the wheelhouse and inside a safe realm. So maybe a calculated risk would be a little bit more of my perspective, but I really like your development mindset right here. So circling back to trust, if you come in and do what you've told us today on the episode, and you say, I'm going to identify people's skill sets, I'm going to begin defining their roles and what exactly they're going to be doing, and then push them to a level where they're challenged and maybe even learn through failing. Does that kind of cycle right there establish the trust that you mentioned earlier?
It will. It does. And you have to, but there's another, I would say there's another facet that you would include into that. You know, it's kind of like making a milkshake. You're adding ingredients and you make sure you don't do too much of this or that. In my world in my world of engineering, we had to develop what was called lean engineering. We had to map out our process. We had to value stream map it. We had to identify Six Sigma waste areas. We had to do all kinds of different things in an engineering world because our handoff was our product to manufacturing. And in manufacturing, you can't allow them for mistakes. Everything's got to be really good. So you do constraints management. There's things. That roadmap, that map, when you put it out there and everybody can see it and visualize it, then to your point, Ryan, everybody then can begin to go where we're going, when are we doing it, how are we doing it? You put quality valves in place, and the process in itself, as you watch it, also helps the individual grow, because they become a part of that organism, a part of that system. Instead of fighting it, they grow with it. And so it's one thing to be able to put a fire out. I'm sorry, to put a fire out, but it's another thing to never let the fire happen and prevent it. And so trying to get people to see that, what you're about, the big picture, because most times everybody's working in an isolated box, not understanding what the other guy's doing. So it's got to be like a football team mentality. And I know you played football team, but you know, if the guard doesn't block, then the play may break down. You're still a team. You're still out there. You just huddle back up and you try it again. And in an engineering world and lean engineering, if you don't follow that construct and build your teams and have those dialogues and have those discussions and listen to them and all that, and be nurturing. And I use the word nurturing. That was one of my biggest, I nurtured people. There's a difference between mentoring and nurturing. Nurturing, and you know, the listening to them, giving them advice, not being critical. But it takes a lot to manage that from different skill sets, spiritual, physical, and mental. You got to bring them all three together.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So what you're getting into as part of that mentoring, that nurturing process is a lot of people think of employee care, and I'll probably fling just one question back to you before we're going to jump to break, and then we'll pick up this discussion from there. But in that value stream processing, because I do want to touch on that again and expand on that a little bit, but I also want to take the opportunity now to mention this mentoring, nurturing portion of it. A lot of us, I would say, believe in staff development and staff training and staff growth, but you just said kind of the whole person, right? And tell me this, if this sounds right to you, instead of seeing that there's an issue with a staff component of the team and you treat the symptom by just training maybe a skill set, but you go help the person, you're now treating the cause because you have a healthier person that can produce healthy work instead of an unhealthy person that can maybe fake it through a skill for a while. You're telling us as employers, leaders, and influential people to treat the cause, not the symptom. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's correct. You have to, the individual, we used to refer to him as the operator.
Yep.
The operator is the key ingredient. The value stream mapping is the process, the quality valves, those things that you put in place, but your focus is the operator. On a team, your focus is the operator. And what I mean by that, Ryan, you're probably going to touch on it, is that when you have good mentoring, good nurturing, and you have a process that's working, the ultimate goal is one operator can do another operator's job, because they then learn each other's. And then as you learn, your team expands and it expands. And when one can't be there, the process doesn't stop because somebody else can step in. So you take those failures, if you want to call them, or challenges or whatever, and you try to help explain to them how that will work and grow. And especially, as I said earlier, if you're trying to increase the skill set, that's a metric people don't focus on a lot. They get an expert and the guy's great at one thing, but I want a guy that's great at many things, because then he's more valuable to the team.
Okay, so let me jump in here real quick. So because we're gonna talk about this a little bit more again, back to this mentorship and this value-based or this value stream model mapping that you're talking about. But real quick, we're gonna have to cut to commercial break, but I do want to stick a pin in it right there for the audience. And remember, audience, grab your pen and paper and write down what you're hearing. I want you to take these lessons home. So stay tuned, and we're gonna be back with more Bob Conn right after this commercial break on Pivotal Change.